The doctor and co-founder of Peak Prosperity explains it best in this summary. It is also why I believe that this will be a long-term struggle for America. This, of course, is regarding to the science and not the spirit of our country's failures. Given this information, I see no evidence to support a vaccine. Therapeutics have shown success. Social distancing worked. The science of masks have proven to work best if everyone participates. With that said, the law is written in everyone's heart.
Even asymptomatic people. Dr. Chris Martinson here on July 14th, 2020. Happy 7/14, everybody. I approve of this billboard. I don't know who put that up, but bless you. That's awesome. Thank you very much for putting this up. Here's my summary for ivermectin. 1, you get shorter hospital stays. That seems to be part of it. That's good. It lowers mortality. That's great. You seem to get faster viral shedding. That's a key hallmark of how you get better faster. No real downside. It has a ridiculously good safety profile. Therefore, there's nothing but upside to it. So I would definitely say this should be part of the standard care frontline therapy. No question about it. I tell you all the time, I don't want to catch COVID-19. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't have 6 weeks to spend in bed right now. I don't want to spend 6 weeks in bed 2 times a year or 3 times or whatever's going on. I don't want any of that. But I think that same awareness hasn't really dawned yet on the larger population, certainly not in the United States. So let's ask where all of this is heading. First, asymptomatic doesn't mean okay. All right. So people can say they feel fine, but they actually are receiving some sort of lung damage, possibly, but also proven now heart damage, things like that. So when we look at this long-lasting damage that certainly happens to people who are COVID mild, serious, or severe, or even asymptomatic. And of course, I would bet the asymptomatic people are better off than the people who are more serious. I get that. But it says that this long-lasting damage can happen even to asymptomatic people. This idea of long-lasting damage, which we now know, includes long-lasting damage to the brain. We presented that a couple weeks ago. To the lungs, we've presented that several times, including today. Kidneys, haven't presented that in a while, but there are people on dialysis who've come out of COVID recovery, so-called, and to the heart. Having early reports are that the male testes seem to get really walloped by this. They shrink for some people, big time. So a lot of ACE2 receptors down there as well in the testes. So I think that this is an incomplete list. And let's imagine that you could get it a second time. This seems to be possible now. So you're sick with COVID, and then you get sick again. What if that's true? Who can say that it won't happen once, twice, a third time, or over and over again, each time sort of walloping your body harder and harder? I want no part of that. And as well, everybody's kind of hoping for this idea of herd immunity, and maybe it's going to happen. What we're finding is, no herd immunity is where we started in this story. Everybody could infect everybody else, and that's fine. But eventually we were hoping where we're going to get to is you have all these people in green here who are immune. But what happens if these people who were green all of a sudden go back to being blue again? And that means that herd immunity is actually lost in this story. And that's where I think we're actually heading, is towards awareness of that. In awareness, and my question is this: what happens when people figure out that SARS-CoV-2 is a nasty disease with long-lasting damage to many organ systems that some, many, a few, all, I don't know the answer to this yet, can catch over and over again, and no silver bullet vaccine is coming along because antibodies are not persistent? What happens when that becomes general knowledge rather than what's being promoted out there? Well, as we're finding out, it's not a nothing disease. It has a pretty big impact. So my hypothesis in all this is that the U.S. in particular has a really tough fall and winter coming. So the conclusion for today is that the time between each new 1 million cases, it continues to shrink. Yes, people can catch SARS-CoV-2 a second time. This is proven and confirmed in today's episode with an actual case where the tests were performed, which means that maybe third or fourth or more times, we don't know. But that's certainly a horrifying thought. The second round seems to be every bit as bad as the first time. Maybe it's worse. We don't know yet if that's because it includes antibody-dependent enhancement, the ADE pathway. We don't know if that's just because your body's weakened. We don't know. The other hope would be that the second round is mild, because you had it, but you caught it again, but it's not that bad because your body knows how to fight it. That's not what's happening here. Long-lasting damage is now a known feature, even among so-called asymptomatic people. Affected organs include heart, lungs, kidneys, and brain. But ivermectin works, and I think so does hydroxychloroquine at this point in time, and so do other things in the Math Plus protocol, and we're learning more and more. So treatments are coming along, but the most important thing is that you are as healthy as you can possibly be and that you can fight this off as best you can. When awareness of all these facts finally penetrates the consumer mindset, I'm using that term very carefully, long-lasting changes will cement themselves. I think the economic damage is going to be quite severe. In the United States economy, which is 70% service economy, a lot of service jobs are not going to do well if people begin to really self-isolate and continue to keep the distance and do all of that because, well, we are legitimately concerned about getting long-lasting damage to our brain, lungs, kidneys, heart, etc., maybe even testes once we figure this out a little bit further. It just didn't have to be this way. It didn't. And plant a garden, you absolutely need to think about where your food's going to be coming from. I'm going to begin advising as well, because it's getting late in the gardening season, for you to build a deep pantry and get yourself ready for some food shortages that may be arriving this fall. Lots of data starting to show up that that's actually going to be a thing. Not shortages like we starve, but I mean key things that healthy foods that are just going to become in short supply because they're getting harder and harder to source. That's part of it. How do you stay safe? My way is to keep my immune system as boosted as I can, on top of course, adequate social distancing and just keeping the heck away from humans right now while we sort all this out as best I can. Quercetin and zinc, two of my go-tos here on a daily basis with D3. Those three things right there are sort of the cornerstone of my personal immune boosting. Selenium, need that as well. Vitamin C, also on a daily basis. I love that. If I do start to feel the scratch in my throat, some of this Gobble Mountain elderberry, organic elderberry syrup, great stuff right there prophylactically at the beginning of that first scratch. If I got sicker than that, N-acetylcysteine to help sop up the free radicals in the oxygen species that get developed when your body is cytokine storming itself. All right, that's all I have for today.